welcome to the Eskrima Podcast. It's time for me to slow down in a very busy day and a very busy life. I use a straight razor and a little bit of careful control to slow my day down, to ponder and think. This is episode 59. We're going to talk about discipline and loyalty to a greater or lesser degree, talk about some of the things that I taught over the lesson. If you're just tuning in, I've been doing this off and on for 2 years alongside all my other social media content. I hope you guys are following me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and we're also on Pinterest and X as well. So if you want to check out the content there, I would really appreciate it. Make sure that you join the community. There'll be a link in the description here. But first, my tradition, which usually gets me blocked for copyright, is the vibe. And I just love this particular video. I think it's pretty funny, and it's just the right vibe for what we're talking about here. I was looking for something a little bit funny. I mostly do like little dances and things like that, usually of a kid, because I think they're fun and it's lighthearted. But then I saw this one and I'm like, well, I'm not 53, but I'll be 52 in about a month. So it kind of struck home with me a little bit, and the music itself definitely hit that vibe because, like, hey, this was what hip hop music was like back in that time. If you were growing up in striped tube socks and growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, I went to high school in the last part of the 80s and graduated in 92. So it really struck home. I thought that was pretty funny, and I liked the vibe. So definitely wanted to add that to this particular one as the vibe for today's podcast, or this week's podcast. It's been a long week, and it's been a good week. We've got a lot of things done, worked on a lot of things at the school, and I'm getting ready to go to I'm getting ready to go to Barbados. So yeah, I hope you appreciated the vibe, but that's the vibe there. Discipline and loyalty are probably two of the most important things in traditional martial arts that we need to focus on in order to have a good community, to have good training. I mean, just the salute itself, right, or the bow, or whatever it is in whatever martial art that you do, is important. It's a contract between you and your teacher, you and your classmate, that you're going to do things in the spirit of learning. And it takes a lot of discipline to put yourself in harm's way, even if it's just training, right? So it's important for us to think about that. I think that for my father, loyalty to him and to the art and his vision, right, it was the most important thing. And he hated to do conflict. Culturally, Filipinos don't like to argue necessarily. There's this whole concept of amor proprio, which is this idea that you don't do anything to make anyone else look bad. And I think that's a good thing on the surface, but there's some detraction for that to think about, which is maybe for another podcast. But for my father, loyalty was super important. And for me, coming in and becoming the head of the system so early when he passed away, it wasn't that. I always was much more interested in people with integrity. However, over the years, dealing with the nature of teaching and training with people, it has become evident to me why my father felt like loyalty was so important in his training and teaching people, because you put a lot of time in people and you give them a lot, and you can't take it back. So you put all that time and energy in someone, and you expect a little bit of compensation. If you think that paying for your lessons is it, that's not it, and you might be in the wrong endeavor, because tuition for lessons is just paying for time. That's all it really is, right? You're not really getting anything else out of it, so it becomes it becomes much more important to you to be connecting with people in training and as you get older that are dedicated to your own endeavor. Everybody can do whatever they want. The rule is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It's this idea that you have complete and total volition. You get to do whatever you want. That also means that as your instructor, my father could do whatever he wanted to. Right? It goes both ways. So, yeah, loyalty was super, super important. The reality is you really can't get anywhere without loyalty or discipline. I mean, like, you got to be steadfast in your commitment to your teacher, your art, your classmates, because otherwise when you take yourself out of the equation, you take what you bring to the training out of the equation for everyone else, and they were benefiting from that. Everybody, doesn't matter how beginner you are, how new you are, or how senior you are, you bring something unique. That's why in the Inayan system of Eskrima, it's traditional to have multiple instructors teaching at the same time, to bring out different perspectives, to bring out different elements that may resonate with different students. I have my Uncle John. He was a character. He was one of my dad's most loyal students, and he had a certain way of teaching. And my good friend Matt, he's a Kata guru in my system, he really gravitated towards him. Not everybody gravitated towards my Uncle John. I liked learning from him because he provided perspective that others couldn't. Mostly because there was only one or two other people that had been around as long as him who had worked or put in the time like he did. Even though there's some other names of people that my father taught that might be more prevalent, there wasn't someone that didn't have better work ethic and an interesting character. A little hard to deal with on occasion, but everybody is. I definitely am, right? So, but it's because of my loyalty and my discipline and my dedication to the class and saying, hey, my dad decided that this person's an instructor, so I'm going to listen to him. That allowed me to gain so much from him. But I think if I was dealing in preferences and my feelings more than my desire to be loyal to the system and the art, I think I would have missed out on that training. Simply because it took time for me to really understand my Uncle John in a way where I could learn from him. And then I made sure that my students got a chance to learn from him because I saw in him opportunity to be connected to an older generation and to get an insight that, I couldn't get from, not even from my father. He just had this different perspective. I want to give a big thanks to Patrick for helping organize the memorial. We just had the memorial workout for my father. And my father's anniversary was September 27th for his passing. So we just did that. And Patrick and all the gurus, they were responsible for all the logistics, right? And I took care of the teaching, of course, and the lesson plans and doing some of the marketing and reaching out. But I couldn't have done it without Patrick, and I delegated that to him. He did a fantastic job of organizing the cutting, organizing the gurus to get together to do stuff, supporting a lot of the other logistics to make sure that everyone had a good time. So big thanks to him. The thing is that I think when you think about loyalty, what I think some people miss is that it takes more than one person to be able to deliver a full experience in training. You can't, your training would be different if it was just the one teacher. And that's true, like most people, they have a bunch of private lesson students. My father was a private lesson student under his teachers, Grandmaster Max, Grandmaster Angel, or Great Grandmasters, right? And so he definitely had that particular, special experience of being that way. But at the same time, after teaching almost 34 years now, right? You can't deny the fact that the students help spark innovation or inspiration or just memory. We're in this process right now. I'm writing a book, And we're migrating our membership platform over to a new platform that's going to have way better options for us, or tools, I should say. I can't do that by myself, right? And the experience I give to my students, and teachers have more than the one student. Sometimes students forget that they're not the only student, right? I have a teacher myself, Ata, who teaches me Navadisha, which is a Maranao region Muslim Filipino martial art. And while I'm his only student right now, he often refers back to people that he used to teach and relates different stories. And so my experience as a student and an instructor under him is influenced by the loyalty and dedication of past students, both alive and unfortunately those who passed. And that's unfortunate, right? Of course, but like that's the whole thing about dedication. That's the whole thing about discipline, because you can't be disciplined and you can't be dedicated without dedication, right? So it's so important. And so the thing comes down to you is like, is you have people like I have Chris and Lauren and Justin, as far as the local instructors are concerned, as well as my Kata gurus like Patrick and Alan, and the up-and-comers, Darwin, who's out in Sacramento, and we have Melissa, who just joined the instructor training program, as well as people like Hans Ingebretsen and others, right, that are coming in and doing the training. I've got Frank the Tank, can't forget Frank the Tank. We got Reedy. Those are student leaders in our Los Gatos class, and they add to the experience because they put the dedication in and give me at least some loyalty to trust to teach them and guide them along that way. I'm very appreciative of that. But all of this is for naught unless we're actually training. Now, recently, Monday, we had our Dumog class. Dumog, for those of you who are just tuning in, is Filipino grappling, and the Spider Dumog system I started was really just started because my Uncle Dan in Osato, my Uncle Danny, he's like a really good martial art would be Southeast Asian martial arts, Silat, Filipino martial arts, and grappling together. Now, Filipino martial arts already had grappling. Buno is a great art, my friend and colleague, Abon Bayet, right? Great grappling system. I really like him and his guy that also teaches under the Got Puno brand, if you will, for the Abon system, right? And great art. But my uncle Danny does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got I think a 3rd degree black belt under Jean-Jacques Machado. And he learns from Keegan, and he learned from just the Machado brothers in general. And if you guys don't know and you're not in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu realm, the Machados are the cousins to the Gracies. The mother of the Machados, the matriarch of the Machado family, is a Gracie. So they grew up together, trained together, did stuff together, and I've had the privilege of training with Professor Jean-Jacques Machado myself. During a instructor training, and we're training under himself, Guru Dan, of course, and then we're also training under Professor Jean-Jacques, who does 1 hour each time on those instructor trainings. It's like, it would be really cool to join these styles. And I heard him say that, and I'm like, challenge accepted. Right? Like, what more loyal way can you be to follow even the offhand guidance of your teacher? What kind of dedication and discipline is that going to take in your training, and where is that going to take you? And I got to tell you, it's taken me to some interesting places as far as my training is concerned. Do I think I needed it to make my Eskrima better? No, definitely not. Has it? Definitely has. So I do that for my students who want a little bit more than just the Eskrima, and that's fine. From a teacher's perspective, I try to keep my bias out of what I'm teaching, but I gravitate towards the Filipino martial arts even when I'm teaching the Dumog classes, even in small pieces. But Monday, what did we work on? We worked on strike loop 3, which is the JKD 4 count strikes. Now, when we do those, those strike loops, we do them in cycles. That's why it's a loop. It repeats itself. And then, of course, we worked on the other basic strike loops throughout the last week. Strike loop 1, 2, and 3 are the white belt strike loops that we work on to develop basic defenses against punches and strikes and kicks for our white belts. And then we move on to other things, which I'm not going to talk about now, because what we did work on as well is the Spider Dumog ground flows 1 through 4, which cover basic positions, sweeps, and transitions and escapes from different positions for the first of the major defenses, right? Like when we look at martial arts and we extract it away from all of the biases, style names, lineages, origins, whatever, when we look at it from a point of view of geometry, we look at it from the point of view of physiology, physics, psychology, etc. We see some common points, right? When we remove our biases, we see some very common points. And this insight that I have, I really attribute to my dedication to the arts in general. It's like, let's look at these things and let's not be biased, or at least let's not let our biases blind us in the way that we train. So we worked on those ground flow drills, and they really teach us to exploit and understand the position and how physics and geometry take part in how we control position to facilitate striking, to facilitate the drawing of a tool in that grappling situation, or to just grapple if that's what you want to do. But I often say the problem with grappling is it leads to more grappling. Now, one of the things that I talk about in the book that I'm working on right now is my experience as a bounty hunter. And I did end up in a grappling situation, and I am thankful that I had some basis of grappling understanding in that situation, because that dude was trying to stab me, and I could have ended the fight in a bunch of different ways, none of them legal as a bounty hunter. Like you can't just shoot people, right? Like, I mean, I could get away with it, but right, that doesn't save me from my liability. And that would also mean that I commit the ultimate sin, thou shalt not kill. As Jesus Christ is my Savior, I try not to do those things. I think I've been successful too, so that's good. But Dumog has its place, is all I'm really saying in the training. Whether you're dedicated to one or another, I think that you're foolish if you think it's the only thing. Simply because involved in over 200 arrests, let's just say that 20 of them were bad arrests. Think of that from the point of view of you meet a pro/amateur fighter and he's got 20 fights under his belt. That ain't no spring chicken. That person has been around a little bit. That's 20 fights. How many fights did he train to get there, right? So like 20 arrests of people that were, of the 200, 10% were like bad, where we had to actually go on hands-on and do things like that, right? And let's just say 5 of them ended up where somebody went to the hospital. Right? That's pretty bad, and most people don't have that experience. Well, my martial arts and my dedication to martial arts and the discipline of going through all those experiences. And mind you, I had teachers, Uncle Rob specifically, that I was just plain afraid of. Right? Like he was my dad's student. You know, you call him uncle because out of respect to your father, this is your Uncle Rob, okay? And I think of him fondly now. He gave me my first car. I had a 1966 Mustang coupe. So, what I know in class that I was afraid of him, and to say anything else would misrepresent my own experience. I was afraid of him. I had to deal with fear, and I had to deal with pain just to get to the class and to train in the class and stuff like that. And that's, I'm not trying to say he was a monster. He wasn't. He was just an ex-Green Beret who really knew how to train people in real combat, and which is something that my father valued. And out of loyalty to my father, even though I didn't want to go to those classes, teacher say, student do. Straight up. That's the rule. And that's the rule that I live by for my father and my Uncle Danny too. He said, be really cool to add these styles together. Teachers say, student do. Let me try. I don't know if he'd be proud of what I've accomplished insofar as the spider Dumog is concerned. But I did my best, and I'm doing my best, which is really all you can hope for. So that brings you down to this next video, which is do it anyways. That'll change your life. Right? Some people, they forget, like you get tired, you get hungry, you get this, you get that. There's all these different reasons why you can't do something. Afraid of failure? I do it anyway. My dog ate it. I do it it's not my fault. You don't build an amazing life or business or relationship by waiting for the perfect moment. You do it by showing up. The thing is about with discipline and loyalty, when you train, that's how you have to learn to do it anyways. You have to get past every obstacle. Part of the objective of martial arts, it's not a book club. It's not a knitting circle. You have to train. You need to be dedicated, and you need to give loyalty to your teacher because they make sacrifices to teach you what they've got. Some of the things that I teach my students come from me being a bouncer for 20 years. Come from me doing bounty hunting from 2012-ish. That's when I started trying to get the education and the certifications too. I stopped doing bounty hunting in late 2018, early 2019, and continued doing law enforcement as a code enforcement officer and dealing with confrontations when I would do inspections and things like that, all the way up into 2020. I had this guy, I was a code enforcement officer in the city of Sausalito, and this guy was building a tunnel in his property that he was working on so they could put a elevator in, right? So he was a wealthy developer, and I think this was his personal home. But he didn't really like the fact that I red tagged his property. He was building a tunnel in San Francisco Bay Area on the San Andreas Fault without permits. So yeah, I'm gonna red tag your building because you don't have permits for digging a tunnel into the hillside so you can make an elevator up to the house that you're working on. That's super dangerous. Well, he took exception to that. And in City Hall, while I was talking to the captain, I believe he was the captain of the police department there, decided to raise his hand and threaten me verbally right in front of the police officer or the captain of the police force, which is like, you just have no self-control. I didn't lift my hands because I knew who I was in front of, and I didn't want to do it. Not to mention the fact that, I didn't think he would hit very hard. It hit a really nice car. So I was talking to the captain and I think a lieutenant or a sergeant, and I don't know if I think it was the captain, to his credit. Yeah, I think it was the captain. He jumped right in front in between us as the guy came at me and with his hand rose. Right hand. It was going to be an angle 1. 100% was going to be an angle 1. He's coming, he's going to hit me because I red tagged this house that he was working on. And it took a lot of discipline not to do anything. I don't want to misrepresent. I thought about doing something. I did. That's the truth. I mean, when you see that strike coming in, it's almost like he sent me a text message to let me know that he was going to do something. There was this mental process of, it's an angle 1, it's for sure an angle 1. And I looked straight at his collarbone. I went, what was it that my teacher said to me? One of my teachers was like, it only takes X amount of foot-pounds of pressure to break the collarbone. I'm like, that's not really a lot. It's not even 20 foot-pounds of pressure. So those of you who might know what that means, it ain't a lot. So I'm looking at him, he's about to strike me. And to the credit of the captain or chief of the police, I can't remember exactly what his title was, but he got right in there. I happened to be in there to talk, not to the mayor, who was talking? I was talking to the head of planning or community, because that's who I reported to as a code enforcement officer. But it was interesting experience. It was a big win for us for the memorial this year that we held in honor of my father. The biggest win, though, was Dylan. Dylan is my nephew. And that kid, he's a teenager, and he's my sister's son, and I love him dearly. But the win is he was there, he was excited, and I couldn't help but think how pleased my father would have been to see him there, applying himself, engaged, having a good time, excited. He got to train with Lauren, and he trained, of course, with his mother, my sister, and they worked hard. And my sister is a taskmaster. She does not let off. It doesn't matter if you've been around for a while. She's like, when I work out with her, I have to make sure that I'm on my top, because she will catch me up if I'm not paying attention. So it was super awesome seeing my nephew there, training, having a good time, excited, and it just made me feel good to have two generations here training of the Inayan family. So that was pretty cool. They had a good time. We did a lot of interesting techniques and things like that, and I think it opened up his mind as to, like, you mean it's not just stick fighting? Now, for those two people that actually watch the podcast, don't let people know that Filipino martial arts is more than knives and two stick fighting, because it's a closely held secret that we even know how to punch. We don't want people to think we can punch. It works in our favor. But seriously speaking, right? He gave the whole event a 9 out of a 10, and that was because he had some issues with some injuries, and so he didn't have as much of a good time as he could. But it's a big thank you to having him there, and so excited to see that happening. We did a lot of panantukan stuff, and he really liked the Filipino boxing, so I'm glad that he got a chance to do it. He actually had come and spent the weekend with Uncle Jason to train and hang out right before he started his freshman year in high school. So pretty damn cool. Pretty excited about that. Had a lot of good times with that. Very, very pleased with the experience of having him there. I had a private lesson with Dr. Wary that day. We worked on sinawali, as we always do, and serrada combination defenses, and he's really working on knife work. So we did some knife work on Monday night with Kandina de Mano Ascension Drill number 3. So that was pretty cool. Had a good time with that with him. And I've been teaching Dr. Wary more than 5 years, not quite 10. He's people go like, hey, I really want to train, but I'm 65 or I'm 75 or I'm getting older. I'm in my early 60s, and they ask him, what's the oldest student you have? Dr. Wary's 81 years old, and he's an exacting intellect, and no stranger to martial arts. Been doing martial arts for quite some time. He's American Kempo stylist, and he's been training with me. He's like, man, this Eskrima is changing everything I know about my Kempo. And I'm like, I'll do that, right? So he's been enjoying the process. I've been enjoying having him as a student. It's a great pleasure. And he mentors me. Like, it's so great. When you get to engage with an elder, definitely take that opportunity. The ones that have, especially the ones that have accomplished something. He's a doctor. He's had thousands of patients. He's gone through medical training. He enlisted in the military as a young man. He has so many stories, so many things to teach you. Like, that's what loyalty and that's what discipline and dedication gets you, is those kinds of interactions, opportunities to work with people that have a wider life experience and wisdom that, frankly, I don't think I'd ever get that. I mean, I didn't go to medical school, but we have amazing conversations about physiology and anatomy as it pertains to fighting, because, well, he'd be fighting. He'd be doing stuff when he was in the military, and he was an ER doctor, so he knows what those injuries look like and stuff. So good experiences there. Tuesday's training, we talked about all different kinds of trainings, but it brings me to this quote. Motivation is a visitor, and your answer is ritual and discipline. This is like huge for the theme for the podcast today. It's this idea that, like people are like, just follow your passion, but passions fall out. Motivation goes away. And what's left with you is the ritual, the process, and your discipline. You need to fall in love with the process. This is huge for martial arts. If you can't go through the thousands of repetitions of any one technique, let alone the hundreds, if not thousands of techniques you need to learn to be competent in martial arts, right? You need to know more than 6 punches? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punches. You need more than 6 punches, right? For martial arts. Like, that might be good for combat sports, but that ain't going to be the thing when it comes to military style combat, especially for highly trained people, right? So it's something to think about, right? Tuesday, we worked on evasion, foundation drill 1 with the knife. We worked on a bunch of different structured defenses and things like that. And we moved on to some basic defenses incorporating evasion, like the Ordubas drill that I learned from my uncle Danny, which is a Largamano technique. We talked about the first reason you learn martial arts is self-control. And then that brings us the second reason, which is so the first reason is self-control. The second reason is self-discipline, discipline again. And the third reason is self-defense. And if you can do those things, if you have control over yourself, you can discipline yourself, you can then defend yourself, which then brings us to the fourth lesson, which is self-realization. So you go self-control, self-discipline, self-defense. And then for the fourth reason, self-mastery. Actually, that's the one I was trying to get to. And then if you can master yourself, you can self-actualize yourself. Realize, which is the ultimate high goal of martial arts, right? Wednesday's class, more Dumog. We worked on ground floor drill 5 and 6, which is great because that's back takes and a bunch of other stuff. So that was super fun. And then we did some closed guard attacks and things like that. So I want to show you this video. This is a new knot that we're going to be possibly using the Dumog system. I actually use knots at different levels as part of the ranking to hide knots and the ability to tie up as part of it. Using knots or tying, using rope is an old way and an old tradition in martial arts, especially Filipino martial arts. I mentioned Abang Bayat earlier. He's one of those guys that really understands that stuff, right? It's huge. And so I use the tying of a belt in the Dumog program to hide that training in there. In the beginning, we don't really cover it till much later, but I put it in there because, God bless my nephew, my niece. She's like a little cowgirl. She's riding horses. She's doing competition. She's amazing. Her name's Hope. Anyways, she, like her brother, is very interested in a bunch of different things. In her case, it's horseback riding. Well, she's doing little cowgirl stuff. So now she's hog tying, but she's not hog tying. She's goat tying because she's little. She's tiny, and so she's got to lasso a goat, jump off the horse, flip the goat over, and tie up and bound that goat in less than 30 seconds or something like that. Crazy. Like, what do you do against someone who takes you down and ties you up and binds you in less than 30 seconds? There's nothing you can do. That's called abduction. So I was lucky we had handcuffs, and I'll tell you, grabbing someone, bringing them to the ground and cuffing them before they even realized what was going on was one of the best ways to catch someone that had an active warrant. So yeah, I teach these knots at different levels. There's a white belt knot, advanced white belt knot, a blue belt knot, and now this new advanced blue belt knot, a purple belt knot, a brown belt, and a black belt knot. So I'm accumulating more information and everything like that. Thursday's lessons, sinawali, we did quite a bit of that. We added the seat pot in there. We did some serrada basics. I really focused on lock on block because that's an element that's part of being in the Inayan system of Eskrima. So we worked a lot on that. We did a little bit of lock flow, and I talked about the reverse and reverse, which is the old way of doing the Dumog in the Inayan system of Eskrima. Patrick, we really focused on stretching and doing lock on blocks. Had a lot of fun with that. And then Saturday we worked on the 4 count. Like, it was pretty much like we worked on some other stuff. We worked on foundation drill 1 for Kinamano, but we really worked on 4 count. And then Dumog on Saturday, which was yesterday, we worked on a knee tap takedown, and we worked on the basic ground floor drill 1, mostly really focusing on the fundamentals in terms of geometry and physics. These things that I talk about in the podcast are all a result of dedication and a loyalty to the traditions that I've been taught and I've been entrusted with. So I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. Like, comment, and share, and stay sharp. Be dangerous.